Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome back to Commerce Meets Law. Thank you so much as always for clicking on this video. Now, you've probably seen it from the title, but today we're discussing the things that I do to stay mentally and physically productive. But beyond productive, to also just ensure that there is some level of balance in our lives. Now, balance can mean loads of different things to loads of different people. Any of you who've listened to any of my podcast episodes, this is one of my favorite questions to ask on the podcast of how you maintain work-life balance. And so many times the question is that can look so different for everyone. And importantly, it can look so different at every stage of your life. Before I get into anything, I just want to talk about why I've decided to make this video about the reasons why or how I can stay mentally and physically productive. I think that whether you're a law student, a university student in general, whether you're working, whether you are at school, whatever stage of life you're at, I think that it serves well for all of us to ensure that we can be efficient and intentional with our time. And importantly, productivity doesn't always have to mean doing work or doing things that are going to further your professional goals or your career goals or your academic ones. They can also be spending time with your friends, spending time with yourself, whether it's socializing, that is also productive because that is part of having a balanced life. And that's just as important as anything else, that's related to work. So I want to preface that, before I talk about any of the tips in particular. And one of the big reasons that alongside that I also wanted to make this video is, on this channel, we talk a lot about commercial awareness. We've done a whole series on different kind of topics and commercial terminology, but it's really important to remember that that is one small part of everything else that makes you a capable trainee or a capable sort of, graduate when you do start working. Whether it's a law firm or any other company, they're looking for individuals that are well rounded and that are holistic. And one big way or reason for doing that is so that you can constantly, prioritize and be able to balance in your life. Because let's face it, we're going to have to do that no matter what stage of life we're at. So I really hope that this video serves as a useful reminder and as a guide of how I do that, and perhaps how you can implement some of these and just give it a go. They may not work for you, they may work for you, but I think there's no harm in applying some of those and just seeing whether it does work for you. These have worked for me through university, but also beforehand. And I really hope that if it even helps one person, then I think that this video will have provided value from my perspective. So I really hope that you enjoy these tips, and please let me know any additional ones that you have or any videos like this that you'd maybe want me to do again in the future. The idea for this video first came when one of my friends a couple of days ago, we kind of send videos to each other, just updating each other on our lives at university. And she said to me, Shreya, can you give me some tips on how you stay productive? I'm really, kind of struggling to balance it all right now. Just anything would help. And I thought, how do I do that? How do I try and stay productive? And the truth of the matter is, I'm not productive every day. There are times when I don't get anything on my to-do list done. There are days when I probably could have done a lot more, but I don't. But it's all about taking a macro perspective, just like, not every day is going to be perfect. And, there are going to be even maybe weeks when things aren't going to go your way. But just thinking about trying to do the best you can every day and taking it as it comes is all we can do, and is all we can realistically expect from ourselves. So I just want to share these tips. These are things that I do that really help make me feel my best and most productive. And I think that hopefully it will help you. And even if it helps one person, then I am happy about it. So I'm going to start from the start of the day, essentially, and walk you through one day and the small things that I do during the day, which kind of help me stay balanced over the long term. So tip number one, no phones for the first hour of the day. Now, this was one of my 2024 goals, and it has genuinely done wonders for my mental, physical health, and for my productivity. Last year, I would get up in the morning, look at my phone first thing, and I'd just be bombarded with work emails, university emails, messages from friends, from family members. And it just meant that I was starting the day thinking about all I had to do for other people rather than things that I had to do for myself. And I just thought that, this was the year where I was going to make sure that I put myself ahead of other people. I put myself first. And then that meant that I had more to give to everyone in my life and also all the responsibilities and goals I have in my life as well. So, one of the big things is that in order to break a habit, you need to replace it with something. Now, a lot of you probably do that. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is scroll your phone, and we're all guilty of that. There's no harm in admitting it. But if we want to make a change, we have to try and do it consciously. And so what I've done is I've replaced my phone with a book. One of the, I've always been a really avid reader, but since coming to university, I've really struggled with finding time to read and finding time to just, enjoy fiction, nonfiction, whatever it is. So I every morning when I drink my coffee, and that is genuinely my favorite part of the day, I just sit down with a book. Some days I prefer to journal instead, and most days I just prefer to read, whether it's 5-10 minutes, depending on how long I have. Not every morning is a nice chill one. Some days you are just rushing to that lecture or that work meeting or the first lesson of your school day. But I just even those 10 minutes are truly life changing. Tip number 2 is going to be meditation. Now, those of you who know me, this probably comes as no surprise, but meditation does not have to be you sitting there for an hour, kind of trying to, put your hands together and try and think of nothing, because that is really, really difficult. And it's difficult for people who've been doing it for a number of years. All I do is I just close my eyes for 5 minutes. I listen to some calming instrumental music, whatever I feel like that morning, and I just try and, calm my mind as much as possible. I try and focus on my breath, and I just try and see how I'm feeling that morning. Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling happy? Am I feeling energized? And it truly just calms your mind and your body, and, just kind of allows you to think that, okay, even if we've got a stressful day ahead of us, we've had this 5 minutes of peace, and we've got this, this time for ourselves. And now we feel a little bit more ready to tackle the day. That doesn't necessarily mean that the tasks you have for the day are going to get any easier, but it just means that your resolve for it gets a little bit better. So that is tip number 2. Again, it may not work for all of you, and you might try it and think, no, but just give it a go. Even just 2 or 3 minutes, with even maybe your favorite kind of, I sometimes put on some Taylor Swift instrumental music on, whatever I'm feeling like. So whatever, whoever your favorite artist is, just try and put that on and try and do it for a couple of minutes and just see what it does for you. It also doesn't have to be super early in the morning. I am a morning person, and so that's when I do it. But anytime during the day, when you feel like you're getting stressed, just take out 2 or 3 minutes, just close your eyes and see what it does. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is a plan of action for the day. Now, this can be in the form of a to-do list, of a time-blocked plan, of a sort of, just a kind of a brain dump list of things that you want to do. Or it can, sort of be, maybe you have a bullet journal and you plan it on there, online, kind of on Notion. It can be whatever you want it to be. But I find that doing it the morning of is really beneficial for me. It just, sometimes I may go to sleep that night thinking I'm feeling really good, and the next morning maybe feel quite fatigued, quite tired, and I may not feel like I can do everything that I've set out to do. So doing it the morning of, based on how I'm feeling, based on how much I realistically think I can get done that day, based on any time commitments that might have cropped up or that I've remembered that I have to attend to that day, and so that kind of limits my capacity to do anything else. I think all of those things are sort of taken into account when you do it the morning of. So that personally works for me, but again, there are lots of schools of thought on this, so you can do it the night before if that works better for you. But I personally think that the other important thing with that is putting on as much as you think you can get done. I'm guilty of this. I used to put about 10 or 11 things on my list every day, and then sometimes I would achieve 2 or 3 of them, sometimes achieve 8 of them, but still feel really guilty about the ones I hadn't achieved. And so making sure that you do it according to what you really, really need to prioritize for that day and what you realistically think you can get done is the most important. If you feel like you'll forget the other things, do a weekly to-do list and write all of them down and then transfer it for every day. but just make sure that you feel like you have written down things that you feel and you can see yourself getting done on that day, which allows you to feel mentally okay and also physically able to achieve those things without trying to go over capacity. So that was tip number 3. Let's move on to the next tip. The next tip, again, is probably going to come as no surprise, but it is working out. So I haven't always had the best relationship with food or exercise. And I think that, a lot of us in our teenage years have struggled with that. And it's not a uncommon issue. However, I think that seeing exercise as a way to make you feel mentally kind of, present for yourself and also physically able to feel energized for your day is so important. For me, I work out 6 days a week and I make sure I take a rest day every week. Sometimes I take 2 depending on how I'm feeling, but I do a mix of running, of going to badminton, which is more of a social sport, so it allows me to sort of meet people and chat to my friends there as well, and going to the gym to build a bit more strength. And I find that that's a really nice balance for me. I prefer to do it in the mornings. As I've said, I am, most energetic in the mornings, and I feel like it just gives me the adrenaline rush that I need for the rest of the day. It may be that evenings work better for you, depending on your time schedule or the kind of person that you are. But just getting in some kind of movement during your day is so important to allow you to feel like you can, kind of when you've done a workout for the day, you have that sense of achievement and you feel like you've done something for yourself that day. And I think that can be a really empowering feeling. So that is something that has really helped me, and it has allowed me to understand that exercise has so many benefits beyond how it makes our body look or how it makes us look to other people. It really is an internal mindset, and I think that's really important to remember. So definitely getting in some sort of workout, and particularly if you can make it social and make it with other people, I think that is just the best. So that is sometimes how I feel. Some days I just want to put a podcast on or put a really amazing playlist on and just run, and that's okay too. So just doing it based on how you feel and base it on intuition is, I think, incredible. So that was the next tip. Number 5 is separating your space. Again, this has done absolute wonders for me at university. So, what I try and do is all of my uni work gets done on campus as much as possible. Of course, when I have exams or when it's particularly stressful periods, sometimes it has to be done at home. But as much as possible, I try and complete all of my university work on campus, which means that there is a particular kind of, part of campus that I really like working in. And so I know that when I go there, that is work time. My body has that signal because that's what I associate that place with. And when I come back to my room, I know that that's time to rest, to relax, to recuperate. I do film my YouTube videos in here, but I kind of count that as part of my recovery and my recuperation period. So that's just me getting out my creative side, hopefully. So that's part of it. But just generally ensuring that you can separate your space to make sure that when it's time to work, your body knows that. And when it's time to rest and recover, your body knows that too. Again, this may not be possible for everyone. Maybe you're in a really cramped space and you don't have that luxury to be able to go to another room. But even just having, a separate space, maybe even on your bed where you work and where you sleep, can be so crucial, because so much of this is a mix of psychological and physical, and being able to physically separate out the space sends that signal to your brain to kind of separate out the work and the rest that you need, because both of those, as we've said, is really important. And as much as you can do it, and as kind of often and consistently as you can maintain that, it really is going to allow your mind and your body to kind of be aligned with each other and ensure that you can get as much done in as little time as possible. The next tip is standing desks. Now, again, anyone who knows me or has seen me on campus probably sees me standing all the time and thinks, I don't know what she's doing. Now, the reason why I think personally for me, standing really helps is that it allows me to genuinely feel more focused when I'm looking at a particular task. I think that sometimes, one, when we sit down for kind of long periods of time, our lives have become so sedentary now. We do so much of our work on our laptops, hunched on our backs. It really isn't good for us physically, but also mentally. It then doesn't separate our time for being kind of sitting down and working and sitting down and relaxing. And I really find that even if you're not standing, not for long periods of time, but even if every so often you take the time to stand for maybe 10 or 15 minutes and then kind of repeat that cycle, or let's say you're taking a phone call and you just walk around instead of sitting in one place, or you kind of tell yourself that when you have to look at your phone, you stand and the rest of the time you sit down, it really does allow you to feel like you are getting more done and you're able to be focused on one task. And there, I think, you can see this from the growth of standing desks in so many different offices and study spaces. I think that, in on the Exeter campus, there are a couple of study spaces which do have these standing desks, which is where you find me. And I think that it has done so much for me. Maybe it is a bit controversial, I'm not really sure, but it's worked wonders for me for focus. So definitely do give that a go if you haven't yet already, even if you stand for, a couple of minutes at the start and slowly increase it. But just let me know in the comments if you've tried it and what it does for you. Tip number 7 is meal prep. So I have come from a house where we rarely ever order takeaway. My mom is an absolutely excellent cook. And so I've grown up in a house always having really, really good and tasty food, but that is healthy and that is homemade. And so that is kind of the philosophy I've carried with me at university. As much as possible, I try and ensure I take packed lunches when I go onto campus. I take packed snacks with me, whether it's fruit or whether it is, a mix of sort of crisps or protein bars or whatever it is that I'm feeling that day, or nuts. And it just allows me to, one, save money, which if you're a university student or even if you are a young professional, I don't think anyone would want to turn that down. So that is incredible. But the other thing is that it does wonders for focus. Now, if you are someone who doesn't, kind of you buy a lunch or you buy your snacks every day, that means that you have to go out and you buy that food and that distracts you from your flow state. So if you're in that flow state of doing work and suddenly your tummy is rumbling and you need to go get food, that kind of breaks that cycle and then you kind of have to get into that flow state once again. And the frictional part of when we want to focus and we don't want to procrastinate is always the start. And so you want to try and avoid breaking that as much as you can. And allowing yourself to take intentional breaks is important. I'm going to come on to that later. But I think that packed food can be such an incredible way to ensure that, one, you can stay healthy, you can save money, but also you know that you've got that food with you. And so you're not thinking about, oh gosh, I have to go, buy food, I have to go buy snacks. And it allows you to stay focused on the task at hand whilst ensuring that you are fueling yourself throughout, because of course whether you do kind of physical or mental work, your brain is expanding calories at all points. So you want to ensure that all the energy you've expended you're putting back in, but how you're putting it back in and what you're using to put it back in is really important. And so making packed lunches at a point where you have that intentionality of being healthy and not at the point where you're really hungry and you probably will just eat anything is really key. And it's been a game changer for me at university. So definitely try that one if you haven't yet. Again, I know that it can be hard for some people. You may not always have time. And I love eating out just as much as the next person. It's probably where I spend a lot of my money because I don't drink. So that money goes into going out with my friends. But that is intentional social time. And so I really ensure that as much as possible, the other times I take packed food to make sure I have a balanced diet, but also that I have a healthy bank account as much as possible. Okay, on to the next tip. The next tip might sound counterintuitive to what I've just said, but I think that it really is about intentionality, as I've said from the start. So this one is taking breaks. Now, taking breaks is really important, and it is one that I've had to tell myself a lot over the years. I have always been very guilty or, been very kind of harsh on myself and felt guilty about the fact that I've wanted to take a break when it's entirely normal and really good to do so. What's important though is how you take that break and what you do during that break. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. What most of us do is we scroll Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, whatever it is that we see, and then we go down a rabbit hole, and 30 minutes later we're still on our phones and we're thinking, oh God, what's happened? taking breaks with intentionality is important. If you have told yourself that in that time you are wanting to check social media, that is perfectly okay. Social media is fun. I enjoy it too. I've now started putting a lot of content out there. So I do enjoy social media myself, but it's about, have you told yourself this is exactly what you're going to do with your time? In which case, that's perfectly fine. But there are so many other things you can do when you are taking breaks. So, for example, you can maybe read 5 minutes, read for 5 minutes. You can just do a quick journal entry for 5 minutes. You can maybe just go and speak to a friend for those 5-10 minutes. You can just go outside and get some fresh air. So much of the time we spend so much of our time sort of inside, sat on a desk, or maybe you're standing now with the tips before. But it's very important to just get that breath of fresh air in you, and that can really re-energize you, particularly if you have that afternoon slump and you think the only thing that's going to solve it is caffeine. Maybe fresh air will do the trick just as much, and is free. So perhaps that's the way down to go. But I think that, ensuring that you know what you're going to do with your break, and that is your intention and that is what you want to do with it, is the most important. I take breaks about every 2 hours. I ensure that, I snack a lot. And so every 2 hours, I have a snack break. I choose to do one of these things. And it really allows me to then get back to it, knowing that I will have another break in 2 hours, and that I don't have to just, I don't see kind of hours and hours ahead of me where I'm just working. And so, as much as I've said earlier that you don't want to kind of break that flow state, you also need to ensure that you take breaks enough times, whatever that is for you, and try it out. Maybe give yourself half an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever works for you, and just see how that allows you to be productive in the time when you are working, knowing that you're going to have a break at some point. I sort of hinted at this earlier, but tip number 9 is scheduling in social time. Again, one of the things that I probably really struggled with before would be always feeling guilty about the fact that I wanted to spend time with my friends, or that I wanted to, go out instead of doing more work. And as I've said, that is all part of a balanced life. We are all social beings and we need people, and we need to invest in our friendships and our relationships just as much as we invest in our work or in our academics or whatever else you sort of have going on in your life. And I think that takes time, especially at university. I've realized that it's not like school. You can't just, go in and see your friend for a lesson and hope that you become friends. You really do have to take out the time to invest in those friendships. But what is the problem is that, especially for those maybe of us who are very type A people and have always, kind of things on our mind, is that if we don't schedule these things in, we're thinking, oh, but what else could I have done with my time? Oh, am I wasting time being here? Am I wasting someone else's time? But scheduling that into your calendar and ensuring that you have done work, outside of that, and you're happy to go and spend that time with your friends, and kind of take out that time of your day, is so important. Seeing it as an investment and not as a waste of time is the mindset shift that we need. So for example, today I went and, spent about 3.5 hours with one of my best friends at university, just in a coffee shop, and we just chatted about anything and everything. And it was truly wonderful. Now, before that, I had some tutoring that I did in the morning. I, did some music practice. I did some work. I, went to the gym. I had some of my own time to do things, but I knew that I was going to go see my friend, and I had accounted for the fact that may take 2 or 3 hours, that may take longer, and I was okay with that. And I think that is really important. As I've said, if you feel like you need to schedule it in, put it in the calendar and make sure that you have blocked out that time. But if you think, actually, no, maybe spontaneity is the way for you to go, then just make sure that you don't feel guilty when you're there. It is just as important, and it will only re-energize and refuel you to do your work when you get back. So make sure that you do schedule in that social time and have that time with your loved ones, because time is really, really precious, and we never know, how long we're going to be here or how long other people are going to be here. So just make sure that you cherish that time as much as you can. The next tip is having a side hustle or a creative project. Now, for me, I've always been someone who can never do just one thing at once. I need to have sort of, multiple things going on at the same time. I just enjoy, kind of having those mix of things, because I get bored really easily. And so For me, one of my, sort of side hustles has been the podcast, now this YouTube channel that I'm trying to grow, and that's been a really fun process. Kind of my, music has always been a really big part of my life, whether it's Indian classical or violin or any of those kind of things. Playing sport has always been really big, and so all of these things are ones that I really enjoy doing, or whether it's just being part of society, being on a committee. But I think that having that side hustle or creative project, not just to show off on your CV or talk to about your employer, which is also of course important, but just for you to feel like you have a purpose outside of what it is that you're currently doing. We want to feel a sense of meaning from our work or from our studies, of course, but we have to understand that we can also find it elsewhere. It doesn't have to all come from there. And your side hustle doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to make you loads of money. It doesn't have to be a second job. It can just be something that you do for your passion, to kind of enrich yourself, and just to make you feel like you have more than one avenue of joy and of meaning than just the one thing that you're focused on right now. So I think that having a side hustle creative project can be such an amazing way to ensure that you feel like you are mentally kind of feeling challenged and intellectually stimulated all the time, even if maybe your work or your school isn't doing that for you right now. But also to ensure that you then have that urge and that drive to stay focused on that work and on that kind of your main tasks as much as possible, because you know that you have that side hustle waiting for you when you get back. So if an idea excites you, or you are excited to work on something, then that is a creative project that you should pursue. And that's like this YouTube channel for me. I'm recording this on a Saturday evening after I've had an amazing coffee with my friend, and it's genuinely something that I enjoy doing, and that brings me a lot of joy. It doesn't feel like work to me. So if there is something like that in your life, definitely pursue it. And don't think about what the kind of when you're going to monetize or anything like that. Just for now, just think about it as something where you can express your creativity no matter how big or how small. Tip number 11 is finding ways to wind down. Now, for me, as I've said, because I'm a morning person, evenings for me are when I choose to even maybe be productive if I have to, but really to try and relax and recuperate and get ready for the next day. Now at university, that looks very different every day, and that's kind of what I love about it. But some days it may be calling home, talking to my parents, giving them a couple of the updates from the day. Sometimes it's calling friends from home. Sometimes it is watching a film or a TV series with my flatmates, or it's maybe going on a night out. I don't do this very often, but when I do, that forms part of it. Some days it is just doing some yoga in the evenings and just maybe going on a walk. And other days it can just be trying to get an early night and maybe just reading in bed for a little bit. But whatever that is for you, find ways to relax your mind and your body, and also to ensure that you are trying to not think about your work or your tasks 24/7. It can be really easy to get sucked into that, because especially in this online world, we can be hustling and working all the time, and we see others around us doing it, and we see the LinkedIn posts or the social media posts and think, oh gosh, we're not doing enough, and doing that. But really, that is just a recipe for emotional and physical burnout. And trust me, I've been there. So ensuring that you can have that balance, and try a couple of things, try some yoga in the evenings, or just try maybe just having a relaxing evening with some reading and then some dinner, and or maybe cooking, whatever it is for you. Just try and find those ways to ensure that you can find ways to wind down so that you can come back fully energized for the next day. And finally, this isn't a tip, but this is just a reminder. It is okay to fail. It is okay for your plan to not work out. It is absolutely fine for you to not tick everything off your to-do list. And it's okay for you to fall behind, even if it is maybe it's a few days, maybe it's a few weeks. You will get back up. You will get there. And if you are feeling like that right now, then please know this is a reminder that you can do this and you can get back to where you wish to be. This week, I spent a lot of time catching up with a lot of friends. I spent a lot of time having some really wonderful conversations. I've also had some tough conversations this week. I've had to learn how to set some boundaries, and I've learned how to put myself first before other people. But I may not have gotten as much work done as I wanted to, and a lot of the days I didn't take everything off my list, but that is okay. And it's something that I've learned to become okay with. I've not always been someone who has been very comfortable with the idea of not achieving everything I have set out to do. But let's face it, rejections and downs and peaks and troughs are just such a normal part of life. And the older we get, the more we're going to realize that. But just what is in your control is to try and reflect on it, try and think why that's happened, what's happened that's caused it. Has that been in your control? If so, can you change it? If it's been outside your control, well, you can't change that. So, what can you do internally to make sure that you can get back up? And if that means having a cry for a day and just feeling a little bit miserable, and then if that allows you to feel better the next day, do it. That's okay. And that's completely and utterly fine. We've all been there, and chances are we're all going to be there at some point. So just remember that that is also a part of the journey. Finding ways to kind of acknowledge that and not push it down, but just accept it and then try and move on from it is one of the best ways to ensure that you can stay mentally and physically productive. And with that, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you've enjoyed it. I know that it's been a bit different to what we normally talk about on this channel or the videos that we've done, but I just had a real urge to do this video this week, especially after that conversation with one of my best friends. And I also feel like when the inspiration struck, I just wanted to go ahead and film this video. So I hope that you found it somewhat useful. As I've said, it's probably nothing revolutionary or groundbreaking, but if it has helped one person or served as a useful reminder to any of you, then my job here is done. So I hope that that's been the case. And please do leave your thoughts down below for any other suggestions that you have or anything that you do that makes you feel this way. And also, if you want me to do videos like this in the future. But for now, I'm going to say thank you so much. I hope you have a productive week. And even if you don't, I hope that you'll get back up and try again next week. But for now, take care, goodbye, and I'll see you very soon on the next video.